until I learned graphic design and art from my first mentor. And I spent a couple of years learning graphic design, but it was not until I had learned how to use code for art and design that really shaped what was possible. Mixing code, art, and design is what creative coding is, but what is creative coding, right? So creative coding is using code that's focused on making something expressive instead of something purely functional. Because most people think of coding to just make an app or a website, but this is about learning how to use code as a new tool, like a pencil or a paintbrush, to make something completely expressive and new for graphic designers and artists. So what you're seeing in front of you is abstract art generated by one of my professors, Casey Reese. He was the creator of a programming language called Processing, which is a simplified coding language for creative and visual-minded people. This work right here by an artist, Aaron Koblin, was the first image that really just blew my mind as far as what I could see was possible with code and art. This is an image of the United States generated purely off flight path data alone. So he's able to take something boring like just a bunch of data points and turn it into something visual and beautiful for the common person to just look at and understand and enjoy. And this would be impossible without code. This is Casey Reese. He is the founder of the programming language called Processing that I use and that I teach. This is an example of one of his works where he taught me how to use code to make really, really fine-tuned, precise, generative patterns and graphics that is impossible to do with just Photoshop alone. Now, here's another example by Aaron Koblin. This is a music video generated with code, which ended up inspiring me to make this video, which is an audio reactive music video. Now, the coolest part about making art and design with code is that once I make one version, I can make thousands of different versions. So that's one of the powers of harnessing code for art and design. Currently, though, I teach all of this on YouTube under Art Now Coding. And so far, I've been able to reach artists and designers from around the world. But the thing is that learning code can be hard. And like, especially people like me who are visual minded people first, it's just not the most natural, intuitive way of thinking. And so since I know all of the struggles and hardships that visual minded people run into when learning code, that's what I started Art Now for, is to help with the confusion and the pain of learning something new and rigorous like coding, to allow the creative person to get over that original hurdle and get through that pain period to just start. I want to make the process of learning code simple, fast, and not boring. I say not boring because most coding classes, it takes just like days of really complex code to just make something like a calculator. And nobody really cares about making something just like a calculator. Instead, we're focused on making an interactive art piece, a generative art piece, a music video, a logo, whatever my student wants to make, we're focused on that to make it exciting. This is a step-by-step 8-week course on how to learn the basics of coding to implement it into your graphic design career and your art profession. I've already worked with fine artists, graphic designers, engineers, and architects. All of these different fields generally come together in one place, creative coding, because we want to innovate the art and the design spaces with code. Currently, I have over 4,000 subscribers on YouTube, Instagram, and Facebook collectively. where I met Karthik, one of my first students. He was just a creative who was a self-taught graphic designer. He went to school for architecture and then tried to learn code. But for him, it was just too difficult, so he gave up. He didn't really see the purpose to continue until he took my 8-week course. And now Karthik is making hundreds of unique patterns and designs for his graphic design practice and posts them on Instagram all the time. He said, I wasn't sure if coding was my cup of tea, but at the end of the course, I was able to execute my ideas from paper to the screen. And I was really happy to see that somebody who had previously given up decided to continue down this path, and now it's a part of what they do every day. The course is going to be a video course by me. You learn how to draw shapes, how to make your own Photoshop brushes, how to make animations with code, and finally, a final project to make art and design for your own personal projects. The course is $289. It's an 8-week video course with PDF content, as well as over 20 hours of bonus content. And my philosophy is that if you can't code by the end of the 8 weeks, as long as you've done all the assignments, then you get all your money back. I'm launching in winter 2020. Is there any questions?
All right. Thank you. That was amazing. Super cool. Yeah,
Thank
I
you.
mean, I've been working with Chris, and he's been a part of my own mastermind to grow his business too. So this is exciting about what you're doing in terms of, combining these different fields and like, I guess, modalities, right? So I'll open it up though for any questions for people. It looks like Jolene's got one. Go ahead and unmute.
So yeah, I have two questions. I'm curious, how did you learn to code? What was your kind of progression? And then you said it's the type of language is that your mentor made was called processing.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. So I learned how to code at UCLA in 2010, 2014. I kind of just got lucky. One of my professors there was Casey Reese, the guy I mentioned. He was the creator of this language called processing. Processing is based off of Java, if anybody here is familiar with coding, but it's specifically repurposed for graphic designers and artists. So there's things that are pre-built in Photoshop that are just, you type in like the same word and it pops up in code the same thing. So it's essentially like being able to make your own little miniature Photoshop tools custom.
Katie.
Well, first of all, like, this is amazing. The work that you and everyone has created that you shared is so captivating. And I'm sure you saw all of our expressions of like, wow, oh my gosh, that's so cool. So that's awesome. I want to take your course. So please put in the chat how we can get in contact with you and sign up. But I'm curious. So I'm going to ask a learning question first and maybe circle back around to something else. But I'm a learning specialist and I help people kind of think about how do we educate folks. And I'm curious, you specifically mentioned that you are focused on making it not boring. And so I'm curious, like, what are some of the ways that you are kind of transforming the learning experience of code for non-coders to make it more engaging and for people to be able to synthesize it?
That's a great question. So one of the earliest projects in the course, like any traditional coding class that you take, like I mentioned before, they'll have you learn like very, very abstract concepts that don't apply to anything really yet. And I mean for like weeks, where most people give up in that process where it's like basically like numbers and crunching and just learning functions and all this stuff. And by the end of it, it's like, cool, now you made a calculator that good job. You know what I mean? That like any computer on any phone in the world could do. So that your efforts just really feel like at the beginning, like it's just a huge uphill journey for something mundane. That's typical coding classes. With mine, I want to do the exact opposite, where um, like I mentioned, since this is a simplified version of coding, you can just say like, make a box, now make it interactive. Good job, you made a brush. Now move it around, you just made a Photoshop brush in like 5 minutes. Like, so the idea is to compel these people who are graphic designers, who are already interested in making like a Photoshop brush for their poster design or something like that. Within the first week, they already have something that they can pull out, play with, and be like, whoa, I made this, cool. And that's the idea, is to focus on the end result, the brush, the graphic design, poster, etc., to keep the student accelerated and interested. And with my students, that's already proven to be what they found valuable. I had many other quotes from Karthik, my student, I could pull up, and that was one of them, was that he loved how it was focused on evolving his personal craft. Yeah.
Leif.
Hello. Hi, Chris. First of all, great presentation.
Thank
And
you.
you had audio and video, and it all worked. So big congratulations making that happen over Zoom, because that is challenging. I was curious how you landed on your price of $289, and if you have gone through the math already to like cost your own time to develop this course, and what your break even will be for how many students you have to get to go through the program at that.
That's a very good question. So the 289 kind of just came from, I've had one-on-one students over the last year, and like honestly at first I was just kind of like, okay, is anybody going to pay for this, that beginning just like test phase. So my first student was free, just to get the course rolling. Then after that, I ended up charging $289 for one-on-one courses. And basically people seemed like that was the price that they felt comfortable with paying. So that's what I have for now. It's based off of just market research with one-on-one clients so far. But yeah, that's something that I would like to take further, as far as my time spent over the next few months being put back. Yeah.
Yeah, what I hear from this is that you'll probably really want that data point, because think about it as you develop this whole 8-week program, which I assume is not fully done, right? This is just
no, I'm in the process of developing.
This is a great time to track all of that meticulously, so that you deploy this whole thing, people love it, and then what they're going to want more from you. So you're like, all right, I got to make this whole new thing again. So how much is that going to cost? Or if I outsource it, what should I expect to be paying, or time-wise? So you have this great anchor point, because a lot of it's the unknowns there. So I recommend a lot of data collection while you do this.
Awesome, thanks. Yeah, and maybe I can learn from somebody else who's been doing that more, hopefully. But yeah, that's definitely something, an area that I need to grow in still, which is how to get more precise data from my audience. Exactly.
Yeah. Well, anyway, thank you.
Thank you.
Ben.
Okay, well, I will second, third, and fourth. It was a really amazing presentation. Here's my question. I'm trying to figure out who your person is. Is it somebody using art to learn to code? Or is it learning code to create art? Because I'm trying to figure out, if I'm somebody who wants to get a job as a coder and I don't want to be bored, do I take your course? And at the end, yes, I'll learn to make art, but I can actually go get a job coding. So who is your guy?
That's a great question. And so that's actually something that I had to think about for many months too. Like, am I focused on the coder, the artist, the graphic designer? So really I'm focused on freelance graphic designers who already have a business or already work for a company. And they have been using Photoshop, the standard tools, for over a decade, like me, for instance, and are just bored and want to add a sharper palette, something that less than 1% of graphic designers in the entire world will have. So ultimately it's about gearing those graphic designers and artists as well with the type of with coding tools to be basically just a little bit ahead of anybody else who doesn't.
So basically the coding is to supplement the graphic design. Not, I mean, because everything you showed could be done just through graphic design, right?
Sort of.
Well, I mean, there's precise boxes and things, right?
Mm-hmm.
But still, I'm trying to figure out why am now, so now I get it. I'm not a beginner with you. I've got to be an established graphic artist, basically. But what do I get? How is it gonna increase my business? Is it just a tool like the brush? I'm buying a new brush and that's gonna help me with some of my work? Or is this creating for me as a graphic artist a new something that is going to generate income for me? Is it, I'm just trying to figure out what's the benefit to the graphic artist of paying $289 for this course?
That's a great question. So yeah, I can see why. There's a reason why I said sort of when you said it could be made with Photoshop tools, basically, is some of the examples I showed, that's true. That if it's just a still static image, you could spend a lot of time to make that image in Photoshop. Some of the things that I'm trying to learn how to focus on right now, which is basically with the code, I'm not just making a single poster. I'm able to use code to make my own unique design, my own unique patterns, and then I can make 100 posters, for instance.
So but it's supplemental.
It is supplemental
to an already existing. I got you now.
To graphic design, exactly.
Really awesome. It's really awesome.
The other thing I want to add that I think I'm not doing a good job on my presentation communicating yet is that you can add interactivity to your work. So for instance, in a website, I can make an animation in the background of somebody's website. So where if they move their mouse around, it like follows their mouse, or, you know, you can make really creative website applications as well. So yeah, ultimately, I guess that kind of gets into my ask actually, which is, yeah, I'm trying to figure out how to make very simple, clear communications of the applications of creative coding specifically. So like if you're a graphic designer, websites, posters, logos, like this is the thing. If you're a fine artist, making your own unique brushes and etc. Just how to clearly communicate the applications essentially.
Yeah, just to that point, I do see when you mentioned it's, you know, for like freelance designers or whatnot, that, you know, again, this is something that you just add into their tool belt. So as they're working with their clients already with whatever projects they have, they can use this as another selling point to say, you know, I also have this skill to, you know, animate and add more visual effects to what I provide too. So
I think that would go a long way in your presentation to really get clear, this is my person. Because I'm thinking, oh, I can learn to code in a really fun way, but that's not who your guy is. Your guy is not about learning to code. Your guy is about supplementing the existing artist or graphic designer, which is great, but I think that could be really made clear in your presentation.
Okay, great. Thank you. I really appreciate that. I'm just writing that down for the future.
So this is Kyle, and I tried to do the raise the hand button, but for some reason wasn't working on mine. I'm trying to get used to all the tools on Zoom to make it better.
Actually, you are raised. Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, okay. Oh, sorry about that. I just jumped in. In any case, I have two high-level comments. One is on the business case, and then is kind of a clarifying question that followed on to who is your end customer. So the first one is on the business case. I see this quite a bit in a lot of folks who are building these online learning platforms with content that guide people through a course, almost like a semester-long class in a university or something like that. The pricing model I've seen that works well for these kinds of things are something like a subscription to a content that gets continually updated with new videos, almost like a sub YouTube or video or interactive video or online live demonstrations or something like that, but then also offers consulting office hours that you block out by periods of time as a supplement to the online learning environment. So that's just a thought consideration for how to price that out, including your time, as an ongoing sustainable kind of business model. So it's just a kind of a thought consideration to look at. And then number two is a question clarifying point on who is your end customer. So I work with a lot of things like cartography, which are artist-based interpretation of data that gets overlaid on a geographic plane. And I see a lot of incoming, really creative art, but in the end, who I'm going to hire is a combination of artists who can present that information in new, impactful ways, so you can look at maps and learn better from them. But also, I think, is your coding example here about how to make that information useful through interaction. And finding cartographers who can do things like code-based interaction design are really potent and useful in this kind of new type industry. So data visualization interactivity, I think, is a largely growing field. So the question is, one, do you anticipate focusing on a subset of people in this area to solve a specific need like cartography? That's only one example of many types of these. And then two is on that interaction piece, just as a question of what you do and what you don't. Are you doing things like WebGL and interaction design type of programming language, or is this purely a visualistic interaction design that augments already graphic design skills? So is there interaction and coding languages in say 3D that you offer on top of that? Just those are high level kind of questions, and just kind of curious as to what your delineation of what you do and what you don't do.
Yeah, absolutely. I love the question. So to the first about the applications with cartography and data visualization, yes, I do plan on having assignments specifically teaching data visualization, but the entire course is not necessarily 100% data visualization, simply because this course is specifically the beginning basics kind of only. It's like by the end of this course, you'll be able to have the tools to make a data visualization interactive work, but I guess this course specifically though is just the building blocks to kind of get you even kind of started with something like that. So as an overall brand, I plan on making multiple products that focus on specific fields. So one is more focused on graphic design, another will be focused on data visualization, and another focused on website design, etc. Yeah, so that gets into your second question about GLSL and web. So I don't know how too much into the weeds we're getting here, but GLSL basically means a graphics language. It's what allows for real 3D rendering, like special effects and etc. Yes, I am able to teach that, but that will probably be in a future course, because to do something that complex is really going to be over the head for this level of coder at this point. Yeah. So yeah, the short answer is basically eventually, but not in this course. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Ryan.
Very nice presentation, Chris.
Thank you.
I was gonna ask for all the views you have on all your YouTube videos, how often are people messaging you asking for more? Because on your website they can't really quite, the only thing you can do on your website is sign up, and then you've got them, and that's great and all. But I'm wondering, for every person that gets exposed to you, how many of those people contact you through your website or over YouTube? Like, do they all have like a huge variety of questions, or they all just like asking one very specific thing? Like, have you already seen a bunch of interest from the exposure you already have?
Thank you for the question. Yeah, so I get, okay, first off, on Instagram, I post inspiration every day, maybe 50 to sometimes 100 just creative coding pieces of other artists and designers that I see, kind of like a little daily magazine. So I get a lot of people who comment back on there, either showing like really strong appreciation, like, wow, how is this made? Sometimes they'll ask me questions. I usually answer just really quick questions on DMs and Instagrams throughout the week. Then I also have about 200 subscribers on the email through the website as well. And then I kind of just, I get very specific questions actually. And sometimes I'll give out some free advice, just like, oh yeah, like download processing, get started. Here's a quick a little video, etc. I'll give advice to people just to kind of get my brand, associated in their mind that art now exists and it's here to help with creative coding. And so, yeah, I mean, the short answer is I do get people every week who reach out. But of course, the more the merrier, right?
Cool. Very cool.
Anna.
Hi, Chris. I was curious, is the course right now on, you're still building the course, so it's not for sale right now?
Yeah, it's right now, it's in the beta stage. What it was is that I had one-on-one courses over this last year, and now I'm transitioning into a video course product based.
Gotcha. And so by when do you anticipate it being on sale?
By winter.
Winter. Okay.
Yes.
Okay, great. Sorry for coming in late, guys. I talked to Katie. Thank you, Katie, for inviting me. And she said that I was like, I have a meeting ending at 9:15, so I can come after that. She said it was okay. So missed your presentation, but I'm getting the gist of it now.
Actually, I'm curious, is anybody here an artist or a graphic designer or a coder or anything like that?
Artist, I'd say.
Okay, cool. So people dabble. They're like I've dabbled, but I'm not going to raise my hand.
Oh
Okay.
no, I need you, Chris. I need to take your course. I need everything. So I'm either waiting for your course, or if you need beta testers, or if you need anybody to survey, I'll pay more than $300 for your product.
Thank you, Jolene. I love it.
And just an idea for way down the road, which is going to be 4.0 version, it would be really great to have this for kids, because right now my son's 9 and they pick this up really fast. And if there was a way, and I feel like in a certain sense, adults and kids can learn the same if they're totally new at it. So I know that's not your market now, but just to keep in mind, that's a huge, huge need with all the homeschooling right now, just to get creative online and learn coding.
Yeah, that is actually a good point. I've thought about that too, as far as how young my audience I want to teach. I specifically, right now, am focusing on postgraduate clientele for a couple of reasons. One, on my actual audience, metrics, that tends to be the people who gravitate towards this stuff, people who are 25 to 35. And then also they happen to have jobs, so they can pay for a product like this, which is nice. But yeah, I agree. I've thought about that as far as just purely ideologically. It would be awesome to get a high school or younger kind of version of this in there, because we're all way more creative when we're kids anyways, and have the plasticity to learn code better anyways. So I mean, yeah, thanks. I'll think about that for the future.
Katie.
Okay, so I want to get really clear on so what context do I have to come into your course with?
Like how much experience?
What do I need to know of any kind?
I guess you have to have an ending goal of your own in mind. So graphic design experience ideally.
What do you mean by that?
So
do I have to be able to use Photoshop? Do I have to own Photoshop?
These are all really, really good questions.
You don't have to know the answers, but I think you have to think that specifically, because based on our conversation, I think I have to know those things, which that automatically takes me personally out of the equation of your target audience, which is fine. But I think you have to be really crystal clear with you have to have these 4 things, or whatever it is, because you need to know that your customers are coming in, your learners ultimately are coming in with the right context so they can be successful with taking your course. So that's kind of one of my first kind of more detailed learning suggestions to make. And then get really clear about concrete outcomes that they can learn after this course. Like, what can I make? What can I do with this, right? Like, give really clear examples. On the bare, like I would say even on the bare minimum side, right? Like if somebody put in extra work and like really got all the concepts, they could do crazy things, right? You can see a million applications, but, and I struggle with this in my own business, is trying to really define like, okay, I'm only working with these people. I'm only providing or only guaranteeing these outcomes to start. And then I can like add in other audiences and other outcomes, later.
No, yeah, that's good. That's a great question, actually. I'll have to think about that more. But yeah, I guess the quick answer though still is technically you don't need to know Photoshop, but it helps a lot. It just because it's terminology and things that will be new for that student that if you already just know helps. But I have taught just a fine artist, a fine painter, how to use code and all of them, and she did fine. So it's yeah, but you're right. I need to like a really simple like elevator way to answer that. Yeah.
Just sort of like Eric was mentioning, like a prerequisite, like a list of like, here's some things that could really help in your journey that will make you successful here, right? Like, I think that would be really cool for people to identify. Margesh.
Hi, this is great stuff, by the way. On one hand, I'm thinking about how does this matter in a world when computers and AI start drawing pictures and patterns? I've seen a lot of interesting things happen, right? Computers are getting more sophisticated. It's a different conversation. Specifically to this, I've seen, as an analog, there's a company called White Hat Junior that started 2 years ago to teach coding to kids. These guys were from India in 2018. They raised only $1 million. They sold for $300 million this year, right? In 100 weeks. Huge demand, with completely different market, completely different value proposition. But there's some learnings there. The value proposition there was that instructors would work with your kids. They're all from India, so they're less expensive. And for I think people are paying $40 an hour to teach their kids, and that's certifications. That certification after 3 weeks, 6 weeks. I think a lot of it is just pent up demand, hype even by parents wanting to teach their kids coding and all this. So in the comfort of their home, they can get their kids to some structured certification programs, essentially, right? So that's just an analog. We can talk a little bit more about that to see where it maps to what you're trying to do. But primarily, I think the way you're approaching it, maybe echoing on the previous conversation, the problem with not being very precise is not that you can't help multiple people, but you spend a lot of time working out your bugs, helping people are not completely tuned to what you have now, right? Not what you'll have next week or 10 days from now. So get to those. I think Karthik seems to be a good student that you have as a prototype who gained from you. Just find 10 of those or 20 of those. Don't try to look for the next 100 or next 1,000. Figure out how to get those 20 in and make them successful. And to make them successful, I would say to maybe lower the barrier, your cost barrier a little bit. Have different certifications like the other company did, and say after 4 weeks, I'll give you a test. It should be a live test, because the moment you do something live, you add more value than just throwing a bunch of videos on YouTube. So every 4 weeks, I'll do a test. And if you fail the test, that's where we stop. And I don't charge you anything more for the future steps. Maybe you charge $50 or something. I don't know what it is for the first step. And maybe you test them again. So introduce some barriers of friction. The friction is a good thing. Don't try to maximize the number of people who go through your thing, because it creates value, the scarcity value of your certification. That's what I think you need to build. Anyway, so just a thought.
Thank you. Yeah, that's actually an interesting way of thinking about how to raise the value through barriers of essentially requirements. And yeah, that's interesting. I'll have to think about that more. Definitely.
I have
Yeah.
a question for you.
Mhm.
So what's more important for you, the money or your art program? Are you a slave to the money or your art program?
Oh, slave to the art, 100%. But the thing is, I like to say, equally, because, the idea is to have this to be able to fund my own art and design career as well.
Yeah, you'll never scale, right? If you don't think of the money. So I would say put money first. You can not, it's in nature. It's in you, right? You'll figure that out.
Absolutely.
You don't figure out the money, you'll never get anywhere.
That's true. No, that's true for sure. I just say the art first because there's easier ways for me to just make money purely, I guess, as just a you know, purely graphic designer alone. But this part of graphic design and art, adding code to the mix, it's really what, you know, keeps me up at night, or just it really sparks my love and passion. So I mean, yeah, that's why I do this. And exactly. Mm-hmm.
And does it matter to you that you teach 1,000 people versus 10 people or 100,000 people? Does that matter at all?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, I want to impact as many artists and designers out there as I can, because
yeah,
most graphic designers have never heard of this stuff. Seriously. I mean, this is like 1% like of all graphic designers in the world have even heard of this stuff, yet alone know it. Okay. So, I mean, I want to change that. Like over the next 5-10 years, I want, you know, ideally, at least most designers are aware that this is an option to add to their practice, etc. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I guess what I'm getting collectively, though, which is just something I already felt, so I'm glad to hear, which is more clear-cut examples on the applications for creative coding to basically give a stronger reason for the purchase of the actual course, as well as thinking about the cost structure. And I really like this idea of barriers of friction and barriers of entry. I'll have to think about that more.
All right, last two questions here. So Valerie.
Hi. You mentioned that you answer a lot of questions, and that's kind of your personal brand, and that's how you connect with people. That's your marketing. That's just kind of how you love to interact, and I think that's wonderful. What popped into my head is I took an Excel programming course, similar price to yours. Sounds like more content, and it was also open-ended. It wasn't just 8 weeks. But I was really amazed that the guy who offered that also allows you, there's a lot of different videos in it, and under each video you can ask questions, and even though it's an open-ended program, he answers them. And so it's not like he cut off the time, or like you have, 8 weeks or 10 weeks or whatever. So I'm impressed that he has the bandwidth to do that. And so as you grow, I'm somebody who pays a lot of attention to how much energy I have in my bucket, and how much bandwidth I have. So I would just pop it out to you to think about how much, to be really specific about how many questions you can answer, so your customers have an expectation of how much personal attention they're going to get from you, so that they're not disappointed or frustrated when you can't get back to them within 48 hours, or that you don't get back to them at all because that wasn't part of the program or what have you.
Awesome. Yeah. So to clarify, first off, thanks, Valerie. It's actually really helpful getting, feedback from somebody who's been there as a student. And then, so the 8 weeks is not like, it's not like the cord gets pulled, you don't have access to the course anymore. You have access to the course indefinitely. The 8 weeks is just simply to say, within 8 weeks, if you do 100% of the coursework and you're not able to code, it just didn't work out for you, that you get your money back. That's what that was about. Now, if somebody chose to spend longer than the 8 weeks, then they'll have the course forever to go through. I really like your idea of ensuring how much time from me that they're going to get. So yeah, I'll have to think about how I can allocate my time to answer questions in the comments. Ideally, I would love to be able to do that. I just don't know yet as far as scalability wise. So for now, I'm like at first for sure, but if it becomes unmanageable, I guess I'll deal with it. But yeah, I really like the idea though of being able to have them ask questions below and answer them for sure. And then I think Leaf also mentioned something similar of adding office hours, or I think that was Leaf. Yeah.
All right, last one, Tessa.
Hey, I've been going on and off because I'm I have a question, and then someone asks it and it's answered. So in the end, mine's kind of less of a question than my own experience of that presentation. And I was holy crap, it's all the things that I want to be I've been trying to do for ages, but there's been barriers for various reasons, like artist, graphic designer, coding. And I'm is this the mecca? Is this where it all comes together? And it's only $289. And so I'm a person who has ample free time, ample resources, and I would have ended up in your course, but I have no no grasp, the confident grasp in Photoshop, or confident grasp in the concepts of graphic design, and dabbled in coding, but obviously met that same barrier that you were talking about. So just as a that's somebody that you got, that's a fly that you caught on your web when you did your presentation. And maybe I might have been somebody who either may not have fit the model, like Katie was saying, and might be a time suck for you, and or that could be a possibility. I would love to hope that if I did take your course, actually I would have taken a lot out of it and done something with it. And so I can't know that because the course isn't out yet. But the other thing was, listening to you do this presentation, I'm he's got such an easy way of speaking, and calm and collected, and trusting you with the way that you're presenting right now. So that helps me. It's not it doesn't work on the hype side of things, but it definitely builds my confidence of my enjoyment and the clarity of what the videos are going to be like. And my hope would be listening to you say that the art is your passion, and you really want to get this to as many people as possible, in terms of get it to help people learn this skill, makes me feel there's passion there that I want to be able to engage with. And so with all those things in mind, this is just some feedback on your presentation, what that hit for me, the notes that hit for me. And lastly, I would, in this situation, I know I've done coding before, I know I've done art, some graphic design, some art, and getting questions and answered from you is super keen. It's definitely really necessary because you're the one with the knowledge. But then also being able to have a very close community feel in some way, being able to message underneath, like Valerie was saying, but then be able to have responses from your peers, either saying, yeah, I'm having that same problem too, or here's what I did with it. And I know that that's actually a really, really hard part to cultivate, especially as your video, it gets more people in it, and it gets more popular. But if right in this early stage, if you can play with ways to sort of create community that's not just a unmanned Facebook book group or whatever, but really in that, maybe in your platform somehow have it you can go back there and you just see comments. It's sort of simple to build in, but it can be really meaningful to making just another online course turn into a learning environment, which I think is where people really love to get their passion for whatever it is they're learning, and will just totally sell your course to anybody by word of mouth. So they're just some thoughts. Not that all my questions were already answered. So
Awesome. Thanks, Tessa. I'm actually really surprised and glad that you found this interested yourself. I say surprised because, me, I'm this stuff's awesome, but I'm biased, So it's great to hear somebody else who doesn't normally think or do design and art, and actually be really interested in learning all of this. I appreciate that. But yeah, to get your ideas, you actually kind of did have a question, I think, at least, which is is there going to be community, right? And yeah, and I would just say, yeah, I didn't touch on that at all. Thanks for bringing me aware to that. But I'm thinking about what I want to do. Okay, currently I have a public Facebook group with about 150 members. And that's kind of just a free group for anybody to kind of just come and start this sense of community that you're already talking about. People who just want to share their own creative coding art, or people who are beginners who want to just look at and like kind of lurk at what other people who are more advanced are making. So I have that already. But yeah, ideally I want to have either a private Facebook group or some sort of integration onto my website of the actual course. I haven't gotten that far down to the actual technical side of it, but absolutely to be able to ask questions at the bottom of the videos, as well as to be able to reach out, because me and Victor actually met in something similar in a community style course. So I know how powerful that sense of community and networking and accountability with other students can be. So yeah, I mean, I'll definitely think about how to incorporate community more. And then yeah, it's just, one more thing you mentioned, which is confidence. And that's something that I'm still trying to really work out myself. Like again, like I said, I'm biased. So I'm trying to, reach out to my audience and figure out on, how broad versus how niche are they really thinking, like, cause I'm thinking like, okay, only graphic designers are going to be interested in this. But then you're like, hey, but I've dabbled with design and coding, so I'm interested, like, where do I fit in? So I like to think about how to speak to people more like you, Tessa, actually, who are like, I guess, don't feel super confident yet as like in a role as a creative, but are a creative minded person who wants to learn this stuff. Yeah.
Hey, Chris, I have a quick question. You're talking about graphics designers who want to learn, become comfortable with coding. What about the other way around? Somebody who's good at coding now wants to get introduced to graphics design. This may be a more natural path to them than the other paths because they know coding.
So yeah, actually, that's the interesting part about this is that think of creative coding as like a new interdisciplinary field in between software engineering, like development, coding, graphic design, and like I mentioned earlier, even architects use it for certain reasons. I mean, so really you can go either way. I'm just focusing on the graphic designer and creative to coding pathway because that's the pathway that I took, that I'm familiar with, that I feel like I could teach much better than the other way around. But I have actually done that. I have taught a developer, a software programmer, graphic design and art concepts as well. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So,
Well,
I mean, so yeah, I got last thing I'll touch on that. My grand scheme is to, eventually have a product specifically for coders to focus more on teaching graphic design and art to them. But that's down the road, not this course. This course is focused on just teaching the basics of coding to graphic designers and artists. Yeah.
Awesome. Clearly, you've generated lots of interest here. So yeah, everybody's applauding and giving you praise. So this is super cool. We want to save some time for breakout rooms still,
Sounds good.
And afterwards, then you guys can, uh, decide where to go from there. But we ask one last question to our presenters. What can the 1 Million Cups community do for you?
Yeah, I guess I kind of cheated and I answered this earlier, but I'll answer it more clearly now, which is, as you can tell, I kind of just need to figure out how to market this to my audience more clearly, just figuring out what is the 80-20 core essentials that I need to be focusing my time marketing versus all of the other things that I could be talking about that matter much less. Yeah.
Right. Cool. And if you do end up in the breakout room with Chris, then you can talk through that with him as well. So,
question, did your mentor fund you, or did you ask him for funding, and what did he say?
I'm sorry, was that for me?
Yeah.
I couldn't hear the question that well. Could you ask it one more time?
Did you ask your mentor for funding?
So Casey Reese is the head of the Processing Foundation, and I haven't reached out officially yet for funding, but they have options for funding that I'm thinking about applying for within the foundation. So essentially, that would be, the Processing Foundation is a subset of UCLA, and what I want to do is build up a prototype and pitch it to him and see if they want to be officially a part of Art Now in the future or not, as the Processing Foundation. Yeah. So no funding currently, but there's plans for that.
Yeah, I hear a lot of potential in that, so that's super cool. So what you can do for the 1 Million Cups community, and that's for everyone here, is to bring a friend next week. So definitely seems like everybody got a lot of good value and support and feedback here. So love the questions and the community, but no, not but, and bring a friend. So if you are interested to also present your business or venture or idea, definitely go to 1millioncups.com/Seattle to present. And all you need is to be willing to try something new, willing to ask for help, and to learn by doing. So, yeah, you've seen the great amount of feedback that has been provided here. So, yeah, claim that for yourself and go apply. Um, so, oh, and if you do want to get involved to be a volunteer, we would like a lot of support in putting on these events, marketing, engaging in social media, other just project management, organizational skills. So, would love some support if you're interested to be on the team. We're gonna break out into breakout rooms, and there'll be 3 to 4 of us in each room to just connect even deeper. And with that, thank you all for being here at 1 Million Cups, and we will catch you next week.